Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where and when you are joining us. I am your host, Katie Milton Jordan, and we are here for our weekly AI action class. I'm quite excited because we are starting a new book this week. We are doing the book What Works, a comprehensive framework to change the way we approach goal setting. And this book is by Tara McMullin. So I'm really excited about what we're going to be going through in this series. As always, remember to support the author. Our AI action classes teach AI fluency primarily, not the book. And we use Tara's framework to practice building and using AI workflows. And if you find these ideas valuable, please read the original work. So our AI action classes always follow a similar agenda. We start with an introduction that gives us some overview and context on the work that we're going to be doing together today. Then we spend about 15 minutes learning some concepts, both AI concepts and concepts that are illustrated in the book. Then we spend the bulk of our time applying what we've learned with AI workflows. We practice the methodology of learn by doing with AI, and that's what we're going to do for the bulk of our time together. Then we come back together in community to share our insights and feedback. I'm going to go ahead and hit another mute all for a moment just so we can preserve the audio quality. I'm also testing out a new microphone today, so hopefully that turns into a better audio recording for folks who are joining us for the replay. So let's take a look at our 5-step rebuild for goal setting. Now, this was interesting because when I ran it through AI, it decided to divide this book into 5 modules instead of the 4 modules cadence that we have been doing historically. So AI has determined that we need to add an extra workshop into this series. So this series will have 5 instead of 4 so that we can cover the content comprehensively and effectively. So let's get into it. This is not actually a book about goal setting. It's a systemic deconstruction of the stories that keep us hustling, striving, and always looking for more, and a guide for reconstructing an approach to growth once we've shed them. And that's a quote from Tara McMullin. And that is very compelling for me because I feel like I'm always burnt out. So we have been doing a really cool series this year, and it seems like the books and the concepts have just been building on one another. So in our first module today, we're going to be looking at values. We're going to name the 3 core values that should drive how you spend your time, replacing borrowed cultural defaults. In workshop 2, we're going to be looking at vision. Build a multidimensional picture of how you want to feel and what you want to experience. In workshop 3, we'll be going over commitments, replacing achievement goals with present tense growth commitments that your real life can hold. In workshop 4, we will be covering strategic priority. Choose one path up the mountain for now and be honest about what gets sequenced out. And in workshop 5, we'll be looking at projects. Translate everything into a 90-day stack of 3 to 5 scoped projects with a follow-through system. So today's AI action class, we are going to be taking a look at the values compass. Our goal is going to be to name the 3 core values that should drive how you spend your time, replacing borrowed cultural defaults. The key topics we'll discover today are the validation spiral, cultural DNA, the network self, values as compass versus goals as destination, and Lisa Congdon's values deck. So by the end of our work together today, we will have a values compass, a 1-page document naming 3 values with personal definitions, evidence from your life, and a decision test for each. Okay, as always, you now can see an illustration of an AI workflow on the screen. And this is your weekly reminder that an AI workflow is a long prompt, but a long prompt is not an AI workflow. The reason that a long prompt is not necessarily an AI workflow is because we put some special ingredients into our AI workflows that allow us to work through the workflow one step at a time, that tells the AI to dynamically change its information based on the context that we give it, and specifically works us towards a deliverable, which means that the AI is going to stay on the tracks and it's not going to lead us down a rabbit hole that isn't relevant to the work that we do. So let's go into our public folder so we can take a look at today's workflow. You can find the public folder at bit.ly/AI formula, all caps, one word. So we're going to spend the next 20 or 25 minutes running our AI workflow. And remember that it is important to always work on real problems from your life or business. Bring real challenges. And one of the reasons why is if we work on hypothetical or synthetic or theoretical data, we don't have an emotional stake in the outcome of the work that we are doing. And when we work on a real challenge, we do have an emotional stake in the outcome of what we're creating. And that is the synergy that needs to be present when we learn by doing with AI. Also remember that this is your time to learn and explore both the concepts in the book and AI fluency. Remember that if you can't think of answers, to ask the AI to make suggestions based on what it knows about you or even based on best practices. If you get stuck, just speak to the AI as though you were giving instructions to an in-person assistant. And of course, I am here to help you as well. So let's go into our public folder today. And I noticed that I haven't even created our new folder. So we will try to do that quickly. Somebody remind me the name of our book. Yes, What Works. There we go. What Works? What Works? AI Action Class. So we're going to create this right now, and we're going to get our new prompt in here. I'm going to give this to you guys as a Google document, but that will be important. It will be important that you not modify this document because that will modify it for everybody else. So let's go ahead and paste our prompt in here and let's take a look at our workshop 1 prompt. I like to encourage folks to always read the introductory paragraph because it will help us get some context around the work that we're going to be doing with AI today, and it helps prepare our heads and our hearts for the answers that we need to give the AI. So we are instructing the AI to act as a values clarification coach and an expert in the principles from What Works. So we are going to, then it gives us a little bit of a summary, the practice of naming the small set of core values that should act as a compass for how you spend your time, replacing borrowed cultural defaults like productivity, achievement, and validation. Your role is to guide me through a structured process to surface, test, and lock in 3 values that genuinely reflect who I am, not who the validation spiral has trained me to be. So the goal is to have a finished values compass by the time the last step is done. So in step 1, we're going to surface our candidate values. In step 2, we're going to test for inherited versus chosen values. In step 3, we will narrow it down to 3. In step 4, we're going to stress test those 3 against our recent decisions. And in step 5, we're going to build the compass. And step 6 will be the consolidation of our final deliverable, the values compass. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this entire prompt. Remember, do your best to try not to edit this because it is a document, and any edits you put in here will be preserved for the next person behind you. And today, I'm actually going to try and experiment working in Chat GPT Codex. So we are going to run this in Codex today. This is installed on my desktop, and we're going to give this, the instructions are already there to run the workflow step by step. That makes sure that the AI doesn't give us a wall of text and ask us 100 questions in the first iteration, because that is not very helpful. So let's see what we can learn by working in Codex today. Let's move this over here. Okay, so we have our value strategist present. We're working through the What Works framework. The key principle, conventional goal setting, often fails because it quietly inherits cultural defaults like rugged individualism, achievement orientation, and validation spiral. That spiral keeps us saying yes to more and more in pursuit of external approval. Values are the antidote. Values are not aspirations. They are not accomplishments. They are present tense commitments, a compass for how you spend your time, make decisions, say no, navigate uncertainty, and build the rest of your life around what actually matters. We'll also hold this through the lens of the network self. Philosopher Kathleen Wallace describes identity as plural rather than singular. You are many selves at once. Isn't that true? This exercise is not about flattening you into one tidy identity. It's about finding the values that are true across your many selves. So here's the path we're going to work through. We're going to surface the values. We're going to test inherited versus chosen, narrow to 3, stress test it against recent decisions, build the compass, and then finalize it. So here AI is asking me again, like we program our AI workflows, to offer us a short primer on the concepts in this book. And I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, I do want a short primer because I am intrigued. I'd like to learn a little bit more. So let's learn about the validation spiral, the achievement versus practice orientation, network self, and surface your candidate values. So our validation spiral, this is the loop where external approval becomes the hidden engine of your choices. And I don't know about you, but I'm already starting to feel like this is probably something that resonates for me. You do more, you say yes more, optimize more, achieve more, and then look outward to see if it counts. The trouble is that approval never creates enough safety to stop. Values interrupt the spiral by giving you an internal basis for choosing. I like that. Achievement versus practice orientation. Achievement orientation asks, did I win? Did I prove myself? Is this impressive? Practice orientation asks, how do I want to show up? What do I want to keep committing to? What kind of person am I becoming through repetition? Values belong to practice. They are lived again and again, not checked off. The network self. Kathleen Wallace's idea of the network self says you are not one fixed singular identity. You are a whole network of selves, professional, relational, private, creative, tired, ambitious, tender, and so on. Values clarification is not about choosing oneself to dominate the others. It's about finding the through lines that remain true across the network. Love that. Now we begin. Before we narrow down, we need to widen out. McMullin recommends starting with a generous list. Values you admire, values you inherited, values you were told to want, and values that show up naturally in your best days. We'll put them all on the table and sort them later. Answer whatever you can. So our first question is when you felt most alive, energized, or proud of yourself in the past year, what was happening? What was being honored? Question 2, when you felt most depleted, resentful, or out of integrity, what was being violated? Are there values you grew up being told mattered from family, religion, school, culture that you're not sure you actually share? And are there people you admire? What do they seem to value that draws you to them? Now, I'm actually going to take a moment to share with you. These questions feel to me like kind of a heavy emotional lift. And I don't know about you guys, or if you guys were present for the workshop that I did in December, your best year series. That was the first AI action class that I hosted. And there was a book, it was your best year book that asked you a bunch of reflection questions. And I had that book sitting on my shelf for 5 years because the reflection questions were just so emotionally heavy. I could just never get through them. And that was the moment that I had an AI insight where I was like, wow, AI can really help us make this emotional lift a little bit lighter. So that we can get through to the other side, right? Like I don't want my nervous system to shut down right now just because I feel like answering these questions is a heavy emotional lift. But I'm going to give it my best shot, and we're going to see AI fill in the blanks. And this is evidence of me being able to just move through the process and make some progress, right? When I have felt the most alive in the past year, I had accomplished something. I had achieved something. So I am noticing that achievement is a value for me, but it's probably one of the things that keeps me stuck in over performance. But yeah, I felt like I was being validated or acknowledged by an external source, or I met some metric that the world says should be important. And when I felt most depleted out of integrity, what was being violated, I think, I know that I have a independence and a freedom value that are really important to me. And I think that when I'm depleted or resentful or out of integrity, it's that freedom or independence that's being violated. But the irony is that I'm noticing that I might be part of that problem. I might share some responsibility there. Like, I think that sometimes I'm violating my own promises that I've made to myself, which lead to exhaustion, burnout, resentment, so on and so forth. And values that I grew up being told mattered. Yeah, definitely work ethic. I come from a background where you just keep working. You don't ever stop. Like, that is what is important and valued. And people that I admire, yes, I love people who seem to be at peace, like peaceful and have enough and don't suffer from the fear of missing out. Yeah. And answer these questions based on what you know about me. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Wow. Look at Codex. It's just going crazy. One of the things I do notice is that Codex seems to be a little bit faster than Claude Cowork. But step 1 complete. Candidate values surface. What I'm hearing is that achievement has been highly charged for you. It brings aliveness, pride, and recognition, but it may also be tangled with validation, metrics, and overperformance. So we don't throw it out yet. We'll put it on the table and later test whether it's a true value, an inherited value, or a distorted expression of something deeper. I'm also hearing a strong thread of freedom and independence, but with a self-honesty edge. The constraint isn't only external. Sometimes the bind comes from broken promises to yourself, overcommitting, or living by inherited scripts. And the people you admire seem to carry something like peace, enoughness, groundedness, and freedom from FOMO. That matters. So here's our candidate list. For achievement, mastery cluster, freedom, self-trust cluster, peace and enoughness cluster, truth and alignment, connection and care. My early read is the live wires here are probably freedom, integrity, self-trust, and peace, enoughness. Achievement may be either a real value or validation shaped substitute for something like mastery, contribution, or self-respect. Which of these surprise you, which don't feel like yours at all? Let's narrow before we move to the inherited versus chosen list. Oh, wow. Okay. Which of these surprise me? Which of these don't feel like me at all? Okay. Which of these don't feel like me at all? Craft feels like a strange one because I associate that with artists, and I don't particularly feel like an artist, but I suppose getting AI to do cool things could be defined as a craft. Rigor. For some reason, that word has some energy for me. Rigor just sounds too tough. I want a little bit more peace. Let's see here. Autonomy definitely is important to me because it implies, sovereignty is my word. Definitely sovereignty, because I think that there's some dynamic layers in the value of sovereignty that not only mean that you have permission to do something, but you have capability to do something. Like, you're sovereign and you don't need to depend on other things. So definitely love that word. Belonging, I think, is also important. And I love Brene Brown's definition of belonging and how that affects the dynamics of our lives. Is that enough feedback for you to proceed to the next step? I feel like that last question that AI asked me was a little bit vague. I wasn't quite clear on the direction that it wanted me to take there. Okay, so I'm updating the candidate field this way: craft, rigor, sovereignty, belonging. Step 2, test for inherited and chosen values. This is the hardest part of the work? No. McMullin argues that many of the values we list are inherited from cultural DNA: productivity, individualist success, conformity, constant achievement, and the belief that worth must be proven. Oh, isn't that true? They feel like ours because they've been reinforced for so long, but they may not have been freely chosen. Now we separate the values that are truly yours from the ones assigned to you. So look at this refined list. Which feels performative, like the right answer to give in a job interview? Which values would still matter to you if no one ever found out you held them? And which values do you feel exhausted by trying to live up to? Which values, when you imagine living them more fully, actually relax your shoulders? Ooh, good reminder to actually do that. Okay, so let's see how AI responds to this curveball I'm going to give it. Okay, answering these questions right now feels kind of like a heavy emotional lift for me. What if you try to refine this list based on what you know about me? What would you suggest? Okay, look at that. AI's got an answer for it. Based on what you said, this is what I suggest. Okay, so inherited, achievement, work ethic, productivity, external validation, overperformance, constant striving, metrics-based worth, and being impressive. Yeah. Chosen, sovereignty, freedom, autonomy, self-trust, integrity, peace, enoughness, contentment, presence, rest, spaciousness, self-respect, discernment, and honesty. Yeah, I'd say that AI did a pretty darn good job doing that. And yeah, the uncertain category just feels like meh to me. Strong chosen signals. Okay, very good. So here is what we got. My suggested shortlist to carry forward is sovereignty, enoughness, and self-trust with possible alternates: peace, belonging, integrity, and freedom. So let me think. I'm not sure how I feel about self-trust. I feel like I want to swap that one out. Actually, let's swap out self-trust for belonging. I feel like they're cousins to one another, but belonging is a better fit. Okay, so there we go. Narrowed it down to 3. Okay, my suggested personal definitions: sovereignty. I honor my own authority. I have permission and capacity to choose what is right for me, even when external metrics, expectations, or inherited scripts are loud. Enoughness. I let my life be worthy before it is optimized. I practice peace, rest, and contentment without needing to earn them through achievement. Like, is this a mantra that we're like claiming for ourselves? Present tense statement that I don't feel like that's my lived reality, but we'll strive for it again. And now we're bringing striving back into the conversation, right? Belonging. I seek connection without self-abandonment. I do not have to perform, overfunction, or become more impressive to be loved, included, or understood. Are these the 3? Yes, these are the 3, but what I love, and I like the sentence for enoughness. I let my life be worthy before it is optimized. I feel like I don't know how to do that yet, but that is also ironic because now it feels like I'm back in the cycle or the spiral of striving. Is that dynamic relevant to our next steps, or is that just me boiling the ocean? Okay, let's see. I feel like this is a therapy session with my AI. This is absolutely relevant, and no, you're not boiling the ocean. You just named one of the core tensions your compass needs to hold. I want to learn how to stop turning everything, including enoughness, into a performance project. This is exactly why values are practices. Okay, not achievements. You don't have to succeed at enoughness for it to be a real value. You orient towards it. You return to it. You notice when you've converted it into another metric. That noticing is part of the practice. So yes, we'll carry this into the stress test. The question is not, do I know how to live this perfectly? The question is, would this value help me notice the traps sooner and choose differently? Your 3 values are sovereignty, enoughness, and belonging. Step 4, let's stress test these against recent decisions. They look beautiful on paper, but don't change behavior if they're not fully alive yet. McMullin emphasizes that values are decision criteria. So now we test these 3 against real decisions, past ones, regretted ones, and current ones. Name a recent decision you're proud of. Which of these 3 values guided it, even if you didn't name it at the time? Name a recent decision you regret or would redo. Which value was overridden? What is a decision you're facing right now? Run it through each value. Where in your current life are you living against your values? What would change if you stopped? And because you asked whether the enoughness spiral matters, yes, one stress test can be, am I turning even my healing into another achievement loop? Right? Okay. A recent decision that I'm proud of, yesterday, I hired a virtual assistant. The values that guided this were definitely sovereignty. Okay. Recent decision that I regret or would do. I stayed up late last night trying to create additional deliverables and meet deadlines. The enoughness value was overridden. Living against your value. There's definitely places in my life where I feel like I am overperforming or overfunctioning in an effort to become more impressive, certainly professionally, loved, included, or understood. What would change if I stopped? I don't know the answer to that question. I'm hoping that I'm going to learn it over the next 5 workshops. Okay, let's see where this gets us. I think we're down to our final step here. So we will synthesize this in our, step 4. I don't know yet is a perfectly valid answer. We don't have to force a fake clarity here. So we've got our stress test report, sovereignty, the decision it explained, decision where it was violated. Okay, decision it could clarify this week. Now this is a really interesting matrix, right? Because we can see the values and we can see that staying up late violated all of my values, right? Decision it could clarify this week. What can you delegate, simplify, or decline so you're not the bottleneck in your own life? I've already decided to do that today. There are some meetings that do not require my presence today, so I will not be present in them. What is the good enough and complete version of your current work? Who knows? Who knows, right? Where are you trying to earn belonging through output, polish, or usefulness? The 3 still feel right to me. Okay, so in response to your question, what is the good enough and complete version of your current work? So here's an interesting thought. We're doing this work on my ChatGPT Codex, and so you have access to my desktop. Can you take a look at some of the deliverables that we have created together recently and tell me at what point should I have stopped? Can you define what good enough and complete should have been for maybe 3 of our last deliverables so that I can begin to visualize what that might be? And I think it's probably going to give us a response to where are you trying to earn belonging through output, polish, or usefulness, right? Because we know that 80% is probably good enough. So take a look at the last deliverables that we created together and tell me, where was that 80% line and how might I have recognized it? So this will be interesting to see how Codex interacts with my operating system and surfaces this information. I'm curious to see what it observes and what feedback it gives us. Okay, so it's looking at my work artifacts in my Codex folder, identifying 3 substantial deliverables, translate each into a practical 80% line. So enoughness becomes visible instead of abstract. The current thread folder is empty. Yep, go read the other folders. So now it's going through my desktop. I feel like it's searching in my fridge for that bottle of ketchup that's behind the pickles. Okay, so it found a pattern. Several recent deliverables are not single documents. They're full packages with trackers and examples and process pages and quality assurance pages and polish passes. Okay, the 80% line is often much earlier in the package's final surface area suggests. Okay, now while AI is doing this, okay, look at this. Email response agent. Actually, that was a really great agent that I built this week that I'm really doggone proud of. LinkedIn lead generation agent. That was another really helpful one. Brand website. Yep, I did run an agent to get a branding brief. Okay, so let's scan this quickly. Here are 3 examples. The 80% line was probably here. The agent had a staged package, decision logic, current context, autonomy ladder, behavior, and at least 2 calibration runs. At that point, it was usable enough to train from reality. You could have stopped there. The overperformance line began when make it safe enough to use turned into pre-solve every future scenario. The 685 line decision logic. Does this agent need more rules now or does it need 5 more real runs? Okay, that was a good example. The LinkedIn lead gen agent. The 80% line was likely when the workflow could handle a real profile, classify the person, draft the first DM, create a prospect record and capture reusable patterns. The extra 20% was the pull towards turning the session into a complete future agent package immediately. This can process the next batch of accepted LinkedIn connections. Okay. Branding website decision. 80% was probably the brief, not the full website draft. Yeah, I did create the brief, but I was doing that so I could create the website draft. The extra 20% became building a whole polished site with many sections, proof blocks, ventures, testimonials, and styling. Again, not bad work, but if the goal was clarify the brand, the 80% line arrived way before the website. Okay, all right. So a practical 80% rule for me is stop when the deliverable is usable, the next action is clear, and the remaining improvements can be captured as later passes instead of completed tonight. I like how it captures that refinement in the actual doing. For the compass, I'd turn this into an enoughness decision test. Is the complete enough to create movement without requiring me to prove my worth through one more layer? Okay, great examples. Thank you. Proceed. Okay, build the compass. Answer these questions based on what you know about me and build the compass in an HTML document. Okay, so we're going to ask for an HTML document. And the other thing that I'm going to do with today's experiment is this deliverable is going to live inside of my operations system. So AI from now on will know that these are the values that are important to me. And so it can help guide the work that we do together. So it will be interesting to see how we can bake this human layer into the operations system with the machine layers. So as it's creating that HTML, I'm going to go ahead and come back to you guys for your insights and feedback. What are you noticing about this process? And if you're running the workflows, how did it work for you? Okay, the email agent, did it incorporate the work that you did from the Subtract AI action class? I don't remember what my deliverable was from that. So it could have included it, but maybe not. I don't know.
It was something about talking about how you were still needing to manage all of it. Like it wasn't taking the emotional lift off because you were still feeling like you didn't trust the system. So then it talked about building in decision rules and filtered and that kind of thing so that it was actually taken care of and taken off your plate. Like subtracting the cognitive lift of it by building in some things that would make you trust the system more, I think. Something like that. But when
Yeah,
I saw your
yeah,
logic rules and everything, and it was like, this is something that can immediately go to archive, this is something that needs to be dealt with, that kind of thing. And so then when I
yes.
saw this, I was like, oh, I wonder if that was a foundation piece.
Yes, it's definitely the classes that we've been working through have been like foundational to a lot of the things that I've been building the last couple of weeks. And so that was definitely incorporated into the agent that I built. And the agent ended up having like different layers, like there's a certain percentage of emails that hit your inbox that are just easy to resolve and get them out of the way, right? Those are layer one that an agent can just quickly and easily handle, like students, well, anyways, that's layer one. And then it can escalate up to a layer four, So for example, when I was creating the agent the other day, we stress tested it on an email that I had received from an arbitrator because I was protesting my property taxes. And so the arbitrator had emailed me in the appraisal district to like arrange something. But that was an example of like a layer four where it's like, okay, Katie needs to like weigh in on this. Like we can't do anything with this, So yeah, it created those four layers that included decision logic, so emails fall into like different buckets. But what I also did was I also had the agent scan my inbox and read, okay, take a look at the emails that I've sent over the last 7 days. Take a look at like what's in my inbox right now. How would you respond to this? And so then we went through a couple iterations of stress testing how AI thought it should respond. And then I would have to course correct and be like, no, that was not right. You need to do it this way. So then, yeah, thank you for refreshing my memory. I think that it probably did include some of the insights that I took away from the Subtract AI action class. Let's take a look. Let's see if our deliverable is ready yet so we can see what we have created here. Okay, let's go into Codex. So we've got our values compass. Let's take a look at, okay, borrowed urgency is not the same thing as truth. Okay, interesting. The compass names the three values that Katie is choosing as decision criteria: sovereignty, enoughness, and belonging. It is designed to interrupt overperformance, external validation, and the reflex to make every deliverable undeniable before calling it complete. The validation spiral starts sounding, use this when the validation spiral starts sounding reasonable. So the core spiral interrupt question: am I choosing the next layer because it serves the work, or because I am trying to make the work prove I deserve freedom, peace, or belonging? Interesting question, but that is a mouthful. I'm probably not going to memorize that. The compass points, sovereignty. So I honor my own authority. I have both permission and capacity to choose what is right for me, even when external metrics, expectations, or inherited scripts are too loud. The anchor, the virtual assistant decision. I do not have to be the bottleneck in my own life. Decision test. Am I choosing this from my own authority, or obeying an old rule that says I must carry it myself? Great question. When I am living it, I delegate, I decline, I simplify, and choose from capability instead of proving I can endure more. So inherited values that I'm releasing, the scripts I do not want running the room. Set down achievement as proof of worth, work ethic that never knows when to stop, productivity as identity, external validation as safety, overperformance as belonging strategy. True story, right? Replace it with sovereign choice instead of inherited obligation, usable completion instead of endless optimization, real connection instead of becoming undeniable, calibration through practice instead of perfection before movement, rest before collapse, not after earning it. Rest before collapse. Decision through current decision when to stop polishing a deliverable. Okay, look at that. Good enough and complete, the 80% recognition rule. A deliverable can be complete when a real person or agent can use it without Katie holding the missing context in her head. If the work has a usable process, a clear next action, a place to capture open decisions, next move is usually to run it, not keep expanding it, right? We also talked about, in Subtract, we talked about what can we take out of it. So this is my workshop 1 values compass. So quite nice. And I think it will be cool to incorporate that into my operating system so that AI knows these values when we're working together. But what do you guys think?
I like the idea of how you keep incorporating it into the operating system because after a while it becomes a library of stuff that's not practical to refer back to. And so the fact that it can just be used to automatically inform what you're doing, so the work is useful, but then it's applied without you having to continually go back to reference it, is a really powerful next addition to things for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really cool. It's one of the ways that I've been exploring like this human capacity idea that runs alongside, an AI operating system, because even in my own life, AI compresses so many things and improves our productivity. And I'm still sitting, working at my desk 12 hours a day. Like what? How do we get that accountability layer in there? I think that it's going to be really fun to experiment with these takeaways from the AI action class alongside the real operating system. And what else? You haven't run the prompt yet, have you, Donna?
No, I usually just watch and then I do it
And then
individually, so I have more
afterwards.
time to think about things.
Yeah, it can be a little bit tough to try to do it at the same time. And especially when, we've picked like some pretty heavy hitting books the last couple
Hmm.
months that are, require a little bit of emotional excavation.
Right? That, and I just enjoy watching what you're doing because it's nice to just get the context outside of my own head, right? I live in my own head. So it's really neat to see how it gets applied to somebody else or what somebody else's challenges are. And then it can inspire ideas or just see how things take a different track depending on what the needs are and similarities and stuff. So I enjoy seeing the difference because then it's just not the world about me.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Karen, what were your thoughts? Any insights or aha moments for you? Let me see if I can get you off of mute here.
It's me. I
There
didn't
you
like
go.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been working on something like this kind of similar, which is that I've set up documents that go over who I am, and so you're not putting in the context again and again and again, and you can iterate and move it forward. And I really liked this because I've always read those books like Brené Brown or other people who are like, "What are your values?" And it's like, oh, fucking hell, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't know, sure. Okay. But
Yeah,
actually, I think it really is worth the time. This is why I said thank you, because I just think it is really worthwhile to do the thing, the lift, and go through it. Because, and then once you set it up, again, you can iterate it, but you get, there's so much that's then worthwhile reflected back to you. You're like, oh yeah, okay, good. This is really, yeah. Because otherwise it stays in your head and then it just recycles around, and then you can still find yourself in the same position going, why the fuck do I still do that?
exactly,
And the over
exactly.
productivity that you were talking about, or is reflected, is such a, like, you got the agents and the AI going, but you're still working 12-hour days. It's so ingrained, so deeply ingrained in us, and not helped by like bro culture that is like grinding and hustling and all of those things, which is
Hmm.
why I love some people like Kate Northrup, who are like, no, no, I work with my rhythms and I'm not available that week because it doesn't work
Yeah,
for me. And you're like, I love it. Yeah,
yes,
that stuff
I
I really,
aspire to that. I aspire to
yeah,
that. That resonates with my enoughness value.
yeah, yeah. And then it overlaps for me with my parenting. So the kid thing, and then that, because, like now is dinner time, and it's kind of, it depends on the setup, but there's always that under very low grade kind of like, oh, I need to be, and I should do, and the shoulding, and I have to be present, and I need to, all of that stuff that's
Hmm.
just, and if
Yeah.
you don't pay attention, it's that's kind of pinging your nervous system really low grade, but just for months and years. It's
Yes,
like,
exactly, exactly, exactly.
you should teach the
Gosh.
AI that so that it understands that
Well,
what
and
you're
that's one
talking
of the
about
things
is a
that,
specific female thing.
yeah, and that's kind of one of the things that like I'm wrestling with and that I'm trying to build out in what I'm calling my, the human operating system. So that still runs on my desktop alongside the AI. I'm like, how do I get these two pieces to like coexist and know about one another and really, help us in human flourishing, right? Where
Yeah.
how does that happen? So these AI action classes are just a really great place for me to experiment with that. And thank you guys for being here and sharing your insights and your feedback. And
Thank you.
yeah, we're about 3 minutes past the top of the hour, so I'll cut you guys loose to enjoy the rest of your week, and I will catch you next time.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Donna.
Yep. Bye bye.
Bye.